Okay. All right. Call to order the regular board meeting for the Los Olivos Community Services District, July 9, 2025 at 6:10 p.m. We have the roll call.
President Kennedy.
Here.
Director Bayram.
Here.
Director Parks. Here. And remotely, Vice President Palmer.
Here.
And I'll note for the minutes that Director Nelson is not here.
Get everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. Next item on the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for anybody in the room to address the board on any item that's about anything that's not already on the agenda. So that being said, do we have any takers? Okay, yes, right up front there. Keith.
How are you?
There's always her. Let me just really quick,
Yeah.
just remind everybody, it's the 3 minutes. Sorry, we're not
Sure.
trying to cut anybody off. Just
Number one, I want to thank you guys for your service. I very much appreciate it. Nobody wants to become an expert on any of this. And one of the things I would ask of you is, number one, going back to it, we have one well that's out of compliance. I know that the most recent thing you guys put out was like, hey, everybody's above 1%. It was 1%, right? Or the one piece is a target. It's not by law what we have to do. So my question has been, is this voluntary? If it is voluntary, one of the things that I want everyone to be cautious of is Buellton just came out with their thing today. And they're a couple $100,000 in the negative, and they're going to be raising prices. I think it's 59% across the board. Bakersfield's going through the same thing. And they found out that what they put in was they weren't mandated to do it, it was voluntary. So my question is, if this is voluntary, we have 350 total parcels here, and we're talking about a $50 million, can we please look at the area that we are having a problem with and mitigate it so that we do not have to spend this $50 million? That's where my heart is, because I'm looking at it, and people who are talking to me and asking questions, I am by no means an expert. I'm gravely concerned. Because if we have open lots that are going to be charged, it's like, then it's going to force people to build upon those lots. The people that are here who cannot afford a $10,000 a year sewer cost, when everything else, we are within compliance. And we're being mandated to do this. If it is voluntary, let that be known, and we can make a decision based upon voluntary, or if there's some sort of statute, like the government has come down on it, and there is a injunction, if there is a law, I haven't seen. Thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, good evening. I'll echo what Keith said about appreciate your service. It's done a crappy job, but it's a very important job. And the mission when this was formed was to form the district so we could address the issue locally with a local management plan, right? And the original local management plan was groundwater monitoring and handled the downtown core, small lots with a phased approach. And I understand some neighbors said I want to be included. I don't know how many that is. I know the regulators want us to do the whole district. I would encourage you guys to do a survey of the district just to get its sentiment, because you're about ready to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on studies just to get the sentiment of people. Because say that people live on that side of the creek, where the groundwater monitoring shows we're really not any different than anywhere else in the valley or even the regional or central coast, at least based on the limited data. Like, do those people, are they going to vote yes on your project or not, based on knowing that they're not out of compliance? We have these swells, as Keith mentioned. So if the sentiment is yes, we definitely don't want a septic tank anymore. We want a sewer. That's good information for the district to have, but with accurate facts, not this one number that got thrown around out there as that's the new level, because that's complete BS. It's not, it's a planning goal. You look at the data around the state, there's thousands of wells over 10, and there's thousands of wells over 5, 6, and 7, like all over the place. So if we just look, are we being targeted by regulators when we're no different than other? There's a well in downtown San Ynez that's been sewered for years that sinks. So the solving option may be the easiest and best option, but it takes the whole district for sure to even pencil that out at all. So are there smaller local options? Nobody wants a local option next to us. You know, I offered a piece of property years ago and you know how that worked out. But are there smaller local options that would work for the areas that truly have the problem and want it? I just think you guys should have that information before you go out to a vote and you have a whole part of your thing that says, you know what, I wanted it, but not at that price. So I'd say survey with real prices, not agendas. I was super critical of your workshop because even the guy that led it said that's what they wanted, right? It was like this, it was to get the solving vote. You talk to independent thinkers in the room and, you know, it is what it is. But I think you should survey to understand the sentiment, the true sentiment of people based on the facts. And if everybody wants full speed ahead, solving option, figure out how to mitigate that tapping in, because that is a real issue. We think it's not, but it is a real issue in today's day and age. And today I sat next to a developer who's not here, getting my haircut, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm looking at that lot over here because if the sewer goes in, I'm going to build high density." So it's a real sticky issue. But it'd be nice to know the sentiment of people with real facts. Polo, as we mentioned, we're working with Regen to look at some of those smaller local treatment options, just so you guys have the information in case the solving option doesn't go, or in case you get surprised with something. The community needs to have that information. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Do we have anyone online? All right, next item. Sorry.
I wanted to maybe, we don't always respond to comments, but I wanted to just respond to a couple things. First of all, I appreciate the comments from Mr. Starks and Mr. Bell. There's just a couple of things that to look at when you talk about voluntary. I think we've had the regional board here on several occasions, and they've written some letters, and so I think to put it in perspective, to say is it voluntary or not, you know, I've been at almost every meeting here for the last 7 years, and the information that I've gathered is that it's not a voluntary option. So we all form our perceptions based on the information that we have, and that's just where I come from on that. And to show that when there's been a number of members in this community, when their system has failed, they've been forced to go to an advanced on-site system and pay that price as well. So that's just another piece of information. But I've asked that question to the regional board, Mr. Savage, and we've talked about this several times. Maybe we ask again, but that's just where I'm coming from. And again, I hope you guys stay for the meeting and hear through everything as well. And I hear what you're saying. I may have a different perspective, but I appreciate your comments.
Okay, we'll move on then to item 5, General Manager's brief district status report.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything of substance that I need to add this time. Everything's on the agenda.
Okay. All right, next item is the consent agenda. A motion?
I just note
Yes.
for the record, the Finance Subcommittee did not meet. 4th of July and all, right?
I'll note I did review the invoices and I did not see anything that was out of line. Rest of the numbers.
Yeah.
Somebody like to make a
I'll make a
motion?
motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, public comment on the consent agenda. Takers in the room? Any hands up? Okay, sorry, thank you. All right,
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
all right, we have a first and a second.
Roll call.
Yes, roll call, since Director Palmer is.
Director Parks?
Aye.
Director Barron?
Aye.
Vice President Palmer?
Aye.
President Kennedy?
Aye. Thank you. Okay, consent agenda passes. Next item on the agenda is number 7, consideration of a contract with Padre Associates for environmental review services in the amount of $57,383.
Yeah, very briefly, if I could, Madam President, you know, we've been working with Padre kind of unofficially since 2023, over 2 years now. Since you now have resolution 2501 in place, it's time to get them on contract and they can begin doing environmental work in earnest. You might notice in the contract that it goes all the way through the end of next year, just to cover anything that the various design engagements might uncover. Plus, just to wrap something like that up takes a while. So the price is the price at $57,383, but it's a long, from a duration perspective, contract.
We'll have them take public comment and then we'll bring it back to the board.
All right, well, with respect to spending this money on Padre, I'm not speaking for or against it, but I will take the opportunity to mention comments on Director Fayram's comments as it relates to this. Conversation with the regional board is one thing, but you guys were formed to be advocates for the taxpayers of this district.
Madam President, the comment should be related to the item that is being discussed by the board.
Oh, it is, because you're about ready to spend more money on studies related to one solution. I would just say, sometimes public entities work for the taxpayers and not just for the regulators. So is there pushback? Is there clarification on regions of do you have to include those regions in your environmental study? Loop it into your top there, thank you, sir. But do you have to, do you push back at all and say, hey, we have parts of our district where the level's 4, where in the law are you going to be able to mandate an action on that, right? That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for what are the meetings, what do they tell you? I'm saying, what should people know so that they can spend their money appropriately? And then the advanced on-site thing, what should they know about the cost that a district could actually bring that down to if it was part of your plan? I just want the people to have options for the most economical option for them. Majority of your board lives in this small parcel area. So you guys are in a different boat than some of your residents. Julie's told me some of her neighbors, they just want sewer, so I don't know what the sentiment is, but I do think before you go to this big vote, it'd be a bummer to fail a vote by 2% because you didn't understand the sentiment and people didn't trust the information. And I've talked to people in this room that are independent thinkers that don't necessarily trust in the information. So that's all I'm talking about with respect to your study, General Counsel, sir.
Any other comment on the contract at hand?
I would like to see us move forward. I know that there could be some formula out there which somebody could come up with after 6 or 7 years of study that would be approved by the State Water Regional Quality Control Board and the County of Santa Barbara Environmental Health. But so far, all of the people that have said that's possible haven't been able to come up with any kind of documented record or authorization that says that either one of those entities will go along with a partial solution. We need to have a solution to the problem. And it's been here since 1973. And particularly one person that I know very well started our district and our board on the basis of finding a local solution. And the State Water Regional Quality Control Board and the County Environmental Health says that a solution has to encompass the whole district, all 373 parcels, not just the commercial core or the small lots. I live on the west side of the creek. I'm in the area that's being talked about also. We need to have a solution that everybody has to come up and recognize that. We can't just pretend that the problem doesn't exist over there or doesn't exist down there and only exists up here.
Any other public comment on the agenda item?
So my name's Amanda. I live in that area. So my comment is, it's more about those environmental contracts. So it sounds like that there was no bid for the contract and that it was just one vendor that you were looking at who's going to conduct this 2,000 plus contract. So my question then is, why did the bid not go out to the tender? Is it that other organizations don't have enough information, which I think is what we're struggling with in this room today, to be able to understand exactly what the needs are? So that is my comment and also my question.
The question is about, did this go out to bid?
Yes. It did go out to bid. We selected off of the counties, sorry, okay, that response.
Yes, please.
We did go out to bid. It came off the county's approved vendor list, so others could have responded and did give us quotes back in 2023. We're just now getting to the contract.
I see. But it's the 2023 was when the discussion began.
So,
You can ask questions after the
Oh,
meeting.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yep.
And this is Brown Act, we have to kind of follow the rules here. Anyway, any further public comment on this item in the room?
I would just like to piggyback on what she said. I think the comment is, you maybe put it out to bid in 2023, we're in 2025. Was the contract, did you go back to those vendors and did you request a bid from the other vendors for this particular contract? I think that is what I'm interested in hearing also.
Do we have anybody hand up online? Okay, right, go ahead and read that. Yes.
No, we didn't go back out. We've gone through a process 2 years ago, and so we've been working with the same vendor ever since they commented every 3 or 4 months. So no, we didn't.
All right, we'll bring it back to the board. Yes.
Mr. Savage, so as we move along, some of this work would have to wait until some of the design proceeded, or are they anticipating that they can get going with the information we have now, or what is the what's their anticipated work schedule?
They can move forward based on what's in place now.
Well, I think we need to go forward, but would it be hard to, I guess probably wouldn't, but I mean, I guess I'll ask the question, would it be hard to go back to the other vendors and get bids again? Or would that just be putting it off too long?
An item like this is not a low bid. It's qualifications and base and.
So, yeah, we're going through all that.
Yeah, and-
It hasn't been that long.
And one of the resolutions this board made is to use some of that pre-selection process that the county went through. We've already done that, so we can select a vendor off that list, which we all agreed on. Padre and Padre has done a lot of work for a lot of different agencies. And if I had any concerns about that, I'd be the first to bring it up.
So, Director Palmer, do you have any questions or comments on this item?
Yeah, I would just say, the whole reason we went through this process, the EIR contractor selection process in advance of getting to a project description, is so we weren't going to spend 6 months trying to figure out who the contractor would be and burn time getting to a vote. So the whole reason we did this was to have a robust selection, review, RFQ, RFP. We went through that process, that robust process. It's taken us 2 years to get to this point, but that was the reason we did this, was so when we got to this point, we'd be ready to go with the contractor to get moving on the environmental work. So that's my comment.
Thank you. All right, any further comment or questions?
I'll move. I'll move forward. Move on item 7 for a contract with Padre for 57,383, and direct the general manager to proceed with a execute the contract.
All right, we have a first and a second. We'll do roll call.
Director Fayram.
Aye.
Director Parks.
Aye.
President Kennedy.
Aye.
Vice President Palmer.
Aye.
Motion is approved. The resolution is approved. All right, next item on the agenda is consideration of resolution 2502, appropriations limit for the fiscal year 2025, 26.
I mean, Madam President. So this item and the next one, we do these two every year. They're very somewhat bureaucratic in nature. Just you have to go through sort of making sure you've checked all the boxes, making sure that you've made all the proper notifications and so on. The Gann limit, also known as Article 13B of the Constitution of the State of California, mandates that we do some calculations and we adopt basically an annual appropriations limit. In our case, that's basically our budget, right? You did that last one, so now we're in a position to be able to pass a resolution related to that appropriations limit. So that's what's in front of you. Apart from changing the years and a couple of the numbers, which are based on the calculations in the budget, it's identical to prior years.
Thank you. We'll start off with any public comment on this item.
Thank you. So this is based on the assessments, assessing the parcel owners.
This is the,
That's
this is not, that's the next
Special
one.
tax,
This
not
is-
assessment.
Yeah, special tax.
Okay, maybe I'm on the wrong item. Wrong item.
It's we're on number 8.
I had something to talk about the Gann limit. The parcels.
That's this one.
Oh, it is, okay. I guess, I was looking at the historical, about the assessments that have been increasing year after year for the last 7 years and increased based on CPI. And it appears that there's 7 parcels that were, came off of the list. And I think it'd be interesting to know, we went from 371 parcels now to 378 we had, and now we're at 371. And which parcels were able to come out of the district that will not have to pay the assessment anymore? I guess that maybe are not included in the up to 18 vote.
We're on a different item, Madam President.
You're actually on the next item. That's
Oh,
not
I'm
the Gann
sorry.
limit
I
item.
thought this was.
Okay.
That's the next item.
Okay.
Sorry.
So say that.
Okay, hang on.
So the Gann limit's this item. You're talking about the assessment.
Okay.
The next item.
Okay, hold up on that one. We'll come right back to you. All right, so any other comment on this item? Yes, that's the limit, sorry. Any hands up online? Okay, all right. Somebody like to make a motion?
Move approval of resolution 2502.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Do a roll call.
Director Fayram.
Aye.
Director Parks.
Aye.
President Kennedy.
Aye.
Vice President Palmer.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, next item is the consideration of resolution 2503, authorizing levy of property tax assessment and CPI increase.
Yeah, so a few things, I guess, related to this one. So first of all, should a motion for approval be made, I would request that you include the language that's I've included in the agenda, just allowing me to make some minor modifications. It wouldn't change the amount being assessed, but only kind of to public comment. Occasionally we catch things in that, oh, that parcel should have been charged. Oh, it wasn't charged. Now, in the case of the question that was being asked, what has happened is the number of parcels has shrunk because parcels have been joined together. They're no longer 2 parcels, they're just 1 parcel. So for instance, Maddie's Tavern used to be several parcels. They've been combined into a single parcel. So that's why the number has gone down. Occasionally we see lot splits. We haven't seen a lot of those in the district anytime recently, but occasionally it tends to be more the other way. We join some very small parcel that is unbuildable to something that is buildable, making a larger parcel. But also note that I've been in conversations, I do this process every year with the county, and I reach out to them and say, hey, does our list match your list? That sort of thing. And I would like some additional direction from the board regarding one particular parcel. There's a vacant parcel, 135-082-020, which is owned by and I'm sorry, I may mess this name up. Is it Berean or Berrien Church? I'm not sure which way you say it. It's a vacant lot that the county taxes, issues a property tax. back when your board adopted, and I think it was resolution 1807, you exempted it. It's a vacant residentially zoned parcel that probably should be seeing our amount be applied to. But they do pay regular property tax on it because it's a vacant lot. So I would like some direction on that as well. And then last but certainly not least, and maybe this is also to public comment that was starting. We do adjust this amount every year by standard CPI for the broader Southern California region. In this case, it's 3% from last year to this year, and that brings most parcels to right around $700 per year. Thanks.
Okay, we'll come back out to public comment. Any public comment on this item? Anybody hands up online?
No.
He worries about me when I'm not winning. And,
Oh, I thought it was public comment.
Okay. All right, so hearing no public comment, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board.
I have a question of Mr. Savage. So how many parcels does that church have?
So the church has 3 parcels. When I look at on the map, so where the physical building is one, I'll call it parking lot to the right, that they historically used as a parking lot is 2. Those 2, the county exempts. It's the one to the left, it's just a vacant lot that could have a house built on it.
Well, and I guess, my question, that church isn't in operation, are they?
Not to my knowledge, but they maintain,
And haven't been.
yes. They maintain the paperwork with the county that allows them to continue their exemption. So that's why the county continues to exempt the 2 parcels, but not that they're.
I guess my only concern is that it's not being used for that purpose necessarily as opposed to other ones that we have exempted. And it is zoned residential. I mean, they could turn and pull a permit and build a home on it. And so as a matter of equity, if it's not being used for that purpose, is that something we should consider? Is it fair to assess all of their parcels if they're not, in fact, it's just owned by that entity but not used for that? Is that fair to the rest of us that are paying it? I don't know if council would have any guidance on that or not.
If I may, Madam President, just a few words. The parcel that is clearly not being used for any religious purpose, church purpose, would not be exempt from taxation. The other 2 parcels, which, as I understand, have a structure on it, they may or may not be operating per se, but they do have facilities on those, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that the board could potentially direct us to try to exempt those, but you may end up in having to deal with a objection or even an action. The fact that they are at this point in time, at least as far as we know, not actively being used, may not preclude them from saying that they're being used for, quiet study, meditation, any other kind of a church-related purpose. So unless the difference in the math would dictate attempting to challenge that, I think that dealing with a parcel that clearly isn't being used for those purposes would be certainly a step to take. But I think taking on the other 2 that have structures on them and could at any moment in time be said to be that are being used for religious purposes, I think that would create a little bit bigger of a challenge.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate hearing that. Then I would certainly support the 1 parcel, and it sounds like the other 2, the proper way to go would be to leave it alone.
Now, it's not setting any precedence as far as them paying for any, septic system that we end up putting in. Them not being exempt from that. This is just exempt from paying into taxes right now, correct?
Yeah.
It's not setting any precedence where they're gonna say, oh, well, we're not paying for that item.
No, so there are other organizations, St. Mark's, for instance, that is exempt from paying this. That's what your board decided back in 2018. But when we get to the sewer, they will be a participant just like everyone else, just during this period of time.
And
So,
the church still owns that property. That's correct? Okay.
I was hoping Mr. Hertel would have offered for the school to be brought in, but I didn't hear that, so we'll leave it alone.
I'm just on board member. We have paint color issues to deal with.
Yeah, I would support adding the residential lot and leaving the other two exempt as they have been. Director Palmer, any questions or thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree. We should bring it in line with the county assessment. If that third parcel isn't exempt for religious purposes, then we shouldn't exempt it either. So I would be in favor of bringing it in.
So, Madam President, if I may, so I think the right process to do this is I'll bring back another resolution next month, modifying 18.7, I think it was, that you passed, that include that one explicitly. And there will still be time for me to make that change with the county as a special addendum.
Okay.
So I think process-wise, that's the way to do that one.
Okay.
But I would still ask you to pass, consider passing resolution 2503, and then, give me the authorization and President Kennedy the authorization that if other minor changes come up, like if it's a spelling check or, typed in a parcel number wrong.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
So I was gonna say, so Mr. Savage, you said, on the motion then, would you want the motion to be approved resolution 2503 with the note, the general manager, that, with the approval of that, including authorization for the general manager and or the president to make technical changes as noted above? Is that sufficient?
Yeah, knowing that I'm taking staff direction to bring back 1807 or whatever the right number was for adoption next week.
Okay, so if I say so moved, do you have
I do.
that?
Okay.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. We'll do a roll call.
Director Fayram. Director Parks. President Kennedy.
Aye.
Vice President Palmer.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so next item on the agenda, discussion regarding wastewater treatment solution, proposition 218, a request for proposals.
Just one second, okay? Catch up on my notes. All right, sorry. Okay, so just wanted to make a couple of comments. So we did put onto the street, so to speak, an RFP related to the 90% design for the board's direction last month. I wanted to make sure it was on the agenda, just so your board could discuss it in the session, take public comment as needed, so on and so forth. I do have a couple of comments or things I'd like to share about the RFP itself. Let me just jump to that real quick. So, should it pop up here in a second? Here we go. So under our governance, under transparency, I've added down here at the bottom a page for all RFPs as a simple way to point anybody who says, hey, do you have an RFP out for that? That's where I can point people. In this case, I've added this particular one. And because of what we're trying to deal with as it relates to this particular one, there's a lot of documents that any vendor that is going to consider responding to this is going to want to look at. So I put pointers in here to all the Stantec, all the Regen, other documents that are appropriate for somebody who needs to respond. The initial date that I'd given people was July 18th for a response. Turns out, because of scheduling and some other things, not everybody that's going to be part of the review team is available. So I went ahead and pushed it out to August 1st. I did get a couple of folks that said, oh, good, if you push it out to August 1st, I can respond now. Because they too had people that were out of the office that, summer vacations are what summer vacations are. And so one of the things that I'm doing on a regular basis, as part of a formal RFP process like this, you issue question and answer files, so for instance, there's the one from July 3rd, just questions that vendors might ask so that they're all getting the same consistent answer, right? I actually thought I had posted one today, apparently didn't get saved, so I'll have to repost that one. So it has to do with everything from, things like, okay, what do I have to respond to nitty gritty details about things like, well, do I have to do full project specifications and cost? It's known as PS&E for estimating, is the E, so I've had a whole series of questions. People have said, hey, can I propose, for instance, some additional services that you're not specifically asking for, but are closely related? So I've just been trying to answer those, and I put them in a Q&A file so that anybody who's potentially responding can see the question was asked. Here's the answer. And I've just posted them, as I noted, on the website itself. So that's all out there. Let me see if I can get back to. So that information is out there on the website. Again, I agendized this for your board to be able to talk about it tonight. I think the only other one of substance is, I think, through the questions that have come up. One question was asked, this is asking for 90%. Do you anticipate this vendor being the vendor for final design? And the way I've responded to that is basically I'm saying your board will have that option to continue that. So that'll be part of any future contract. Because a couple of vendors have responded saying, well, if I don't have a shot at the final because I've done the 90 or something, they may not respond. So just trying to encourage more people to respond. At this point, I would expect 4 or 5 responses, which is pretty good for an RFP of this size. Given where the state of industry is at right now, I think that's probably a slightly higher number than we might have otherwise received, because federal funds have dried up a little bit, and a lot of these firms are often responding to RFPs for design engineering for things that are federally funded, and those funds aren't there. So they're a little more eager to get contracts, and it might mean some better pricing for it, which would be nice as well.
Great, thank you.
Before public comment, just on the 90, on the consultant ultimately doing the final, but there are professional services contracts that you can do where you explicitly would not allow that entity to do the final work. This isn't one of those, but I appreciate that consultant asked that question, because there are occasions when that happens that you want to do something, and then because they have an insight for the final product, this doesn't fall into that. So, I mean, I don't know if you're going to go to a 90% design, you would probably finish it out within, but that's the board's decision. Appreciate that comment being brought up.
Yeah, if I could, so let me give maybe a little bit better answer for someone that maybe expands on that. So, for instance, the contractor that does the design typically would be excluded from doing the construction. They can still do project oversight, but they couldn't do the construction. So if you're a construction firm, you wouldn't want to propose on the design because you want to do construction, right? And vice versa.
So we'll have 4 or 5 bids for that 90%.
That's my expectation.
Hopefully for the next meeting, correct?
Say that again.
The next meeting, we'll have those.
This is given to the technical team to review. So the technical team subcommittee will do that in a meeting. We won't open all 5 of them here. That group will review them and make a recommendation to the whole board to be able to answer questions. Does that cover what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and open it up to public comment. Takers in the room on this item. Any hands up online?
No.
Wow. Okay. All right, we'll just bring it back to the board then.
I had one suggested modification that we consider, and Mr. Savage, perhaps you could help it give more direction and allow you to do that. So one of the things that occurred to me, I think I mentioned Mr. Savage, is as the board action taken last time was to take both alternatives all the way to 90%. I'm not sure we can do that. And my thought was, is if went to 60% with the two options and let the board select one to move forward, could potentially save some cost. I don't know what that last step for both options would get us, and if it saves us some potentially time and money. Is that something we could give you direction on if the board would approve that, Mr. Savage, today?
I could certainly further clarify that, and I would suggest we do it via the Q&A responses to folks. Those get sent out.
Okay.
I can say that at least two of the vendors are already considering that, because one of the things in the RFP, it kind of says, consider putting things into work packages and lay them out in a logical order. And I know that a couple of vendors have already said, we don't think it makes sense to go all the way to 90% PS&E, project specifications, engineering, and estimating. Instead, kind of along the lines that you're describing right now. So I could certainly add a comment to the Q&A if that's the board's will, that allows a little more latitude in there. They would still have to be responsive to the full 90% though, right? It's just a question of how they would go about it. They would still need to be responsive though to that, or else we have to start over.
I guess it'd be interesting just to see how much money we really save. I know I always like more information rather than less information. So it doesn't cost that much more to go to 90%, than I would think we go to 90%. Just then we would have more clarification on costs. That's my own comment. That if there's be more ambiguity at 60%, and it's only going to cost a small amount of money to go to 90%, then I would rather go to 90% so we have more clarity.
So if I may, I think I have part of the answer for you, Director Parks. Remember, I told you that if we did it in serial, remember I said we'd go through the RFP process twice. I think what Director Fingerham's trying to do is find a middle ground. If I understood what in my early conversation with some vendors, it's around $75,000 to take both to 90. I want to make sure I say this in a way that's clear. Taking everything to 90%, we're estimating is $375,000. It would be potentially 300, that range, if we only took them to 60%, and then just one of them full 90%. So there's savings potentially of about $75,000 in that. And I think that's probably what Director Fingerham, I won't speak for you, is trying to accomplish, plus we'll hurry the process along.
Well, I would just say, because I've been involved with a number of engineering projects that have gone through this step, and the detail you get from 60 to 90 is not anything that would, do you use number 4 rebar, number 6 rebar in this slab or stuff like that. That's what you typically get in the difference. Physical layout, most of the details are still there. I think it's a prudent step if we go the whole way. It's the board's desire, but I think we get what we need and potentially be better custodian of our limited resources if we were to do that.
Yeah,
I suppose the option could be if we bring it back, the board could decide at that time, no,
Yeah, that's what I
do
was
the whole
saying.
thing, but this would give us the option and let the board make that decision at some future meeting. If the board chooses not to, then we go forward. Maybe that, yeah, so.
Yeah, so it's not, you're not tied. Yeah, because I have to say, this is new for me, so if we get to 60%, I want to make sure we really have, really good.
Handcuff ourselves now.
You're right. Okay, that's.
So I think what I'm hearing consensus for Mr. Savage is we'd like to entertain that board's decision at that point, whether or not we do it. And so you would come back to the board for that step.
Sure,
Vice President Palmer?
thank you. Like to
Let
weigh
me,
in?
let me just be sure I understand. I think I got all of that. So essentially the scope would be to 90, but we would have a stop or a phase at 60% for both to check in and decide if we continue to 90
Right.
with one or both. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay.
Now point to
Yeah,
continue
that
both.
works.
As a board, we have enough information to
Right.
clearly 90% on just one. We could go that way as well.
Right. That works for me.
Okay. All right, is that enough direction? Okay. Do we, any other discussion items on this one that we need to?
Not to me. You're looking at me, I was in for you guys.
Let's see.
There's no action required. This is really just a
Yeah.
direction.
I think that has direction by consensus.
Okay, all right, then with that, we'll go ahead and move on to reports. Finance Committee, we did not meet as noted earlier. Director Palmer, Grant Committee.
We met on June 27th, and we talked about, putting together essentially a funding stakeholders meeting with our state representatives, the water board, the county, and ourselves to talk about funding options. Guy, I don't know if we've made any progress since we met, but that was our primary discussion.
Thank you. How Project Management Subcommittee?
No meeting since our last board meeting.
Okay. And how about the technical subcommittee?
No meeting, but we will be.
Okay.
You might also just comment on the ad hoc.
Yeah, so the ad hoc, just to remind everybody, we did establish an ad hoc committee, which is a temporary standing committee to handle the administrative legwork for the benefit of the board on the Prop 218 process. We did have a short, brief meeting, and we've sent out requests for proposal to help with the research and communication vis-a-vis the Prop 218 process. And again, it's an ad hoc standing committee, so it functions differently than the regular standing subcommittees. And again, the goal is because we're moving on a rather tight timeline, we're trying to keep as much moving as we possibly can. So the ad hoc committee will look at the 218, the administrative tasks required for that process, and bring back recommendation to the board.
Madam Chair, may I, real quick?
Yes.
So just because I think people would want to know this, I did create a page on our website underneath our typical meetings page. It's loading now. You can see here on the bottom left, there's ad hoc committees and subcommittees. Just a little introduction about ad hoc committees and what they do and how they work. And then I've been keeping notes from our meeting, just brief. They're unofficial, but at least people at any time can go out there, read the notes after the meeting's over and see what we're talking about.
Great, thank you. So again, your information posted, and again, the function of this committee is to do a bunch of the legwork for the board. It is not making any policy decisions or otherwise. We bring back recommendations to the board will decide. All right, moving on then to the general manager and district engineer comments.
District Engineer Pike is not with us this evening. He's not in the room, and nor is he online, as you can see. So it's just my comments tonight. Just real quick. So the county is moving forward. Let me share my screen again. Sorry. The county is moving forward with their implementation of Workday. I'm gonna load. See if it loads. I'll make it a little bigger for you. As you can see, they're planning the first week of August as their go live date for Workday. So Workday is the financial system the county uses to handle everything. We use the county system just because it adds a layer of transparency and creates some separation of duties that I think are beneficial for us and for the public that's putting funds in. Importantly, when we pay our property taxes, it goes into the county treasury. So all of our funds stay in the county's treasury. They're never brought out into a separate checking account that anybody in the room here has authority to sign anything. We go through the county systems. As it relates to PIN is the current system, Workday is their new system. I've been doing some checking with local accountants to see if maybe we could find a better way to do our accounting, particularly. Really all we do is accounts payable, right? I put the budget into the system, and then we process 3 or 4 invoices a month, and that's kind of all we do all year, right, currently. Turns out that most of the local, at least the ones I spoke to, folks are either more expensive than currently what we're paying, which is about $105 to $110 an hour. But I did find that there's 2 former county employees, one who was actually on the initial Workday project, that Isla Vista and 2 other small districts are using to do their accounts payable. They're $100 an hour, so it reflect the savings to us in a month out basis. And importantly to me, there's probably about 20 hours of training that we'd have to pay somebody to do to get up to speed on Workday. They've already been through that training, so we're going to save some money there as well. So unless I hear something different, you'll see a contract next month to move to this new company, Civic Soul is their name, accounting, to do our accounting, our accounts payable for us in the future. Wouldn't really change our process. I would still send them a note. They would do all the work in the system. I would still push the button that says, yes, those are reflective of what your board approved. Just that it's something they do all the time. I have spoken to M&S, who does this for us today. They're totally fine with this. The person who's been doing our accounting isn't really an accountant. She does accounting amongst other activities. And they're quite happy for us to take it somewhere else. It was just done that way early on because it was easy. So we would save some money, we'd get to professional accountants, and this is as good a time as any to do it. So I will be recommending a contract next month. And I have checked, like I said, with a number of folks locally. Nobody can touch it cost-wise. Just that's what these guys do. That's all they do. So they're a lot more efficient. So there's that. Stop the share and jump to another share real quick. So by way of status, we had a number of questions that we had asked of Dunn last time around about the local solution. They asked in return a bunch of questions. I responded to those. I haven't heard back from them, but not surprising. I have attended some meetings with the City of Solving and Supervisor Hartman's office. Just as we're moving forward with some of these things, it makes some sense. City of Solving, I think, is the biggest lift in this conversation, at least for me, because I want to be sure that we're prepared with the right kind of contracts and give everybody sufficient time to review them, all that sort of stuff. So I am going to start working on those with council so that we can have everything set to go if and when that's the direction you guys decide you want to go. To be clear, so everybody's on the same page here, they have contracts with the community of San Ynez, right? The San Ynez CSD, and the City of Solving has said we expect that your contract is going to basically mirror what we have in place with San Ynez. Obviously, flows are different, sizes are different, but the core tenets of the contract itself are going to be very similar. I spoke with council earlier about this one. I think it was yesterday, day before. There are a couple of things that we want to make sure that are in that contract if they're not already. So I'll be looking to add some clauses, just protections for the district and the ratepayers here in the district. In particular, the whole conversation about, if they wouldn't do this, but there's always a chance that, hey, Solving might say, look, we're going to go this way, or we're going to have this big bill and you guys want to go on your own, but what happens to our investment kind of thing? So I want to make sure that those scenarios are thought through. Anybody who's ever signed contracts, I think knows this, that, contracts don't matter until something goes wrong or something changes, right? And then the contract's all important. So as long as everybody's happy, you don't look at the contract a whole lot. As soon as something goes wrong or something changes, you call out the contract. So I want to make sure that we've got those clauses in there that provide protection to the property owners in the Los Olivos community that I think we need, if they're not already there. So I'll be looking for those, and I've already spoken to council, like I said. Continue to get, per the note earlier, quotes related to Prop 218. We've talked about both of those areas before. One's around communication, one's around polling specifically. Still waiting to get some more quotes from different organizations that do those as specialities. So once we have those, I'll take them to the ad hoc, and then we'll come forward with a contract recommendation to the full board. And I mentioned the accounts payable bit, so I don't need to go through that any further. You go down, you can see this is our cash balance. It's up to just over $467,000. Every one of these bumps up is our property tax payments, right? We make a property tax payment, the account goes up. So good news about this number is it's a little higher than what we were projecting toward the end of last month. So that should give us sufficient room as we move forward to to be able to do what we want. I did talk with county environmental health because that's where we've gotten most of our grants from. Should we want to try and get some sort of a planning grant in the short term to help fund some of this stuff? So they know that we're likely going to be asking for some funds. I didn't have a dollar figure for them, so I can't make an ask right until we have more conversation about what might make sense. But they are aware that, you know, we'll be asking for some more funds. And the way I view it, and I'm sure some of the board and public use it this way, you know, if we weren't doing this, the county would be doing it, and they'd be paying much more of the bill than they are today, right? So it's helpful when they can give us some funds. The other items in here are just kind of typical balance sheets, so no real commentary on those, but I did want to at least share that. There are a couple of other steps coming up here shortly related to, you know, what we have to do. Again, kind of more of the bureaucracy around getting those tax things in there, making sure we've covered, you know, dot I's and cross T's, all that sort of stuff. I also have to start a serious search for a new audit firm. Remember, I mentioned to you before that the audit firm we had been using could only do 5 years or 6 years, and we hit the end of their period. I did reach out to a couple of companies who do it professionally, and their bids came in like 7 or 8 times the amount we were paying previously. So I'm going to keep looking. I don't think we need to be paying $50,000 for an audit for an organization our size. I've reached out through LAFCO to other small agencies to find out who they're using. And I've reached out directly through CSDA, our California Special District Association, to find others, to try and find some firms that might be able to do it in a more cost-effective fashion. Our budget is fairly simple, fairly straightforward, so a $50,000 number just didn't make sense to me. I'm thinking, boy, you're going to really work hard on it, very small. And I've sent them prior audits, so it's not like they don't know what's out there and the size of things, but I guess they're, you know, I think I may have mentioned this before, audit firms can be hard to find, and I think they must all just be really busy, and they're just saying, well, hey, if you pay me $50,000, I'll do it, but otherwise I've got enough work and I don't need it. So I think we may be running into a little bit of that. That's my report. Thank you.
All right, super. Thank you very much.
Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. I forgot about upcoming meetings. So in August, we may or may not have something to look at from a design RFP perspective. I don't know that we're going to have enough time. They're not due till the 1st to make it in August, but we'll at least have some commentary for you. The other conversation I do anticipate bringing to your board to start in August is the whole assessment process. Assessment process is both simple and complex at the same time. There are lots of layers to it. And I want to begin the explanation of how some of that works. I've got a couple of examples from my history. Probably the most direct, unfortunately, example is Los Osos, because they're one of the few that have actually created a new wastewater treatment plant or a new connection like what we're proposing. Most of the rest of them that I've come across are rate change kind of things, and that's not really what we're doing, right? So it's new construction as opposed to replacement construction is what you can see, or a rate. So I've got some ideas for your board to consider. I'll continue between now and next month to try and scour to find some more examples that are more similar to what we're doing. But I do expect to start that conversation in August. And the reason for that is so that as we move forward, we don't have to rush that conversation. In the end, we'll have a couple months to talk through it, think about the impacts and that sort of thing as we head toward a potential Prop 218 next year. No, sorry.
Great, thank you very much. Any questions, comments, or concern for General Manager Savage?
I have a question. You know, when you're doing the contract with Solving, they're going to give us quotes for gravity versus effluent as well, correct? As far as treatment?
So,
because they say they'll treat us just like San Ynez, but if we do go effluent, then they're getting effluent, which is going to be less treatment for them, would be economically beneficial to us treatment-wise, no?
So the parts of the contract I'm going to be most focused on aren't that $1 figure that's the buy-in. Once we've decided on a collection, we can negotiate with them about whether that number makes sense or not. It's really the rest of the contract that I'm very focused on. It's all those other clauses, right?
Director Palmer, any questions or comments for General Manager Savage?
No.
Perfect, thank you. Next item on the agenda, director comments. We'll just roll down the parts.
No, I think I've made my comments.
Director Baker?
No.
Director Palmer?
I'm good.
I just want to add on the meeting that we had with Supervisor Hartman. It was really good. One of the big things that we talked about was the growth issue and how can we work with the county, various agencies, et cetera, to not only do things in coordination, for example, road paving for as one item, but also what can we do to keep our district boundary, keep the rural look and feel. Some many good ideas. Some of them were brought up at the both in the May and the June meeting. So just wanted everyone to know we're going to continue to pursue that. The other thing, one of the other big topics that we talked about, of course, was funding. As General Manager Savage noted, we do have a number of names that we're going to go out, and we've already got a couple of meetings scheduled with some folks to start talking about funding for the construction of what we end up doing. So really good meetings on all fronts. And then meeting with Solving also was really good. It was really kind of a kickoff to make sure we understand both sides, what, if there's anything that we need to make sure we're considering or to build into our design, et cetera. So again, a lot of activity by everyone over the last few weeks, and we'll continue more of that. Okay, with that, we are ready to adjourn. If someone would like to make a motion.
Move adjourned at 7:11.
Second.
We have a first and a second. We have to do a roll call.
Director Bayram, Director Parks, President Kennedy,
Aye.
Vice President Palmer.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.